At our wedding, my fiancée slapped me across the face and screamed, "How could you not wear my father's tuxedo? Put it on or get out." I walked out. She shouted after me, "You will regret this." I looked back once and said, "Time will tell." Her hand hit me so hard, my head snapped sideways, and my boutonniere tore loose from my lapel. I heard the sound before I felt the pain, a flat, sharp crack that bounced off the marble walls of the groom's suite and hung there between us like something neither of us could ever pretend away. My ear rang, my teeth cut into the inside of my cheek, and I tasted copper. For 1 second, the room tilted, then it steadied. When I blinked, I saw myself in the mirror behind her, a man in a $4,600 midnight blue custom tuxedo with a red handprint rising across his left cheek like a warning label. The ceremony was supposed to start in 13 minutes. 200 people were waiting downstairs in the ballroom. White linen, crystal chandeliers, a string quartet warming up near the aisle. I could hear the faint pull of a cello through the floorboards. My best man, Marcus, was probably in the hallway. My father was downstairs in a rented black suit, holding the vows I had rewritten 3 times because I wanted every word to be right. And the woman I had loved for 6 years was standing in front of me with her dead father's yellowed 1989 tuxedo in a garment bag, pointing at my face and screaming, "Put my dad's tux on, Evan, or get out." 6 years. 6 years of swallowing my pride, shrinking my boundaries, and calling it compromise. I reached down, pulled the wedding band from my pocket, and dropped it onto her father's old tuxedo, where it lay crumpled on the floor. Then I walked out. I need to go back, because that slap did not come out of nowhere. It came out of 6 years of a pattern I refused to name, until it put a red mark across my face, and dared me to keep pretending. My name is Evan Mercer. I was 27 when I met Claire Whitmore at a charity auction for a children's hospital downtown. She was 30. A senior marketing strategist at a law firm with the kind of confidence that made people turn toward her before she even spoke. She was beautiful, sharp, funny, and terrifyingly attentive in a way I mistook for love. For the first year, I thought I had found the woman I would spend my life with. Claire texted back instantly. She remembered everything: my coffee order, the name of my first dog, the exact bourbon I liked but never bought for myself. She planned dates with the precision of a military operation and called it romance. She said I was different from every man she had ever dated. She said I listened. She said I made her feel safe, and I believed her because I wanted to be that man. What I did not understand yet was that Claire's definition of safety required control. Her definition of partnership meant obedience. At first, it looked harmless. She wanted to know who I was texting because communication matters. She wanted my calendar shared because couples should coordinate. She corrected my shirts before dinners with her family, because presentation reflects respect. She asked me not to stay out too late with Marcus, because single friends don't always understand committed relationships. Each request sounded reasonable alone. That was the trick. Control does not always enter your life kicking the door down. Sometimes it walks in wearing concern, pours you a drink, and convinces you it only wants what is best for you. By the time I noticed the cage, I had already helped build half of it. The first red flag came 4 months in, the night I met Claire's mother. Elaine Whitmore was 59, twice divorced, perfectly dressed, and had the emotional precision of a woman who could insult you so politely you thanked her before realizing you were bleeding. Claire introduced me in the dining room of Elaine's townhouse, a narrow brick place in Lincoln Park, where every surface looked too expensive to touch. Elaine looked me up and down, smiled without warmth, and said, "Oh, he's handsome. Claire, let's hope he has backbone too." Claire laughed. I smiled. My stomach tightened, but I told myself it was nerves. That was my first mistake, not my last, over the next 6 years. Elaine inserted herself into every corner of our relationship with the quiet confidence of someone who believed access was the same thing as ownership. She criticized my apartment the first time she visited. "It's very bachelor. Evan, functional, I suppose, but not exactly warm." A week later, she brought new dish towels, then new bathroom soap, then throw pillows. Once, I came home and found my bookshelf rearranged because, according to Elaine, a man's home should suggest maturity, not survival. She called Claire every single night at 9:00 p.m. It did not matter if we were eating dinner, watching a movie, or once, in the middle of an argument about why Elaine had a key to my apartment that I had never given her. "She's my mother, Evan," Claire said whenever I pushed back. "She has been through enough. The least you can do is make her feel included." Included. Elaine was not included. Elaine was installed. She was load-bearing. Try to remove her, and the entire structure shook. The worst part was how cleanly they made it sound like love, family loyalty, respect, tradition, support. But somehow, every one of those words meant the same thing. I was supposed to give way, every time. The engagement should have been a warning sign the size of a billboard. I proposed on our 6-year anniversary at a small restaurant near the river, the kind of place Claire loved because the lighting made everyone look expensive. I had spent 3 months choosing the ring, rehearsing what I wanted to say, convincing myself that marriage would calm the parts of our relationship that felt tense. I thought once we were officially building a life together, Elaine would step back. I was wrong. Within 72 hours of the engagement, Elaine had opinions about everything: the venue, the flowers, the guest list, the menu, the ceremony music, the hotel block, the color of the napkins, the suits for my groomsmen. And then came the tuxedo. At the first family dinner after the proposal, Elaine disappeared upstairs and came back carrying a long black garment bag, like it contained a holy relic. "This," she said softly, laying it across the back of the sofa, "is Richard's tuxedo." Richard was Claire's father. He had died 12 years earlier, and his memory lived inside that family like a permanent third parent. Elaine unzipped the bag with theatrical care. Inside was a yellowing 1989 tuxedo with satin lapels, a slightly warped bow tie, and an ivory dinner jacket that had gone the color of old teeth. "Your father wore this when we were married," Elaine said to Claire. Then she looked at me. It would mean everything if Evan wore it, to honor him, to keep the family tradition alive. I already had my tuxedo. I had ordered it from a tailor in West Loop after saving for months. Midnight blue, clean lines, no shine, no gimmicks. It fit me like something built around my actual body instead of someone else's memory. When I told Elaine, carefully, respectfully, that I appreciated the offer, but wanted to wear my own tuxedo, her face moved through 3 expressions: surprise, hurt, then something cold and flat. She did not yell. She did not cry. That would have been too honest. She simply said, "Of course, Evan, it's your choice." Then she began the campaign. By the end of the month, Claire's aunts had heard I refused to honor her father. Her cousins had heard I thought Whitmore traditions were ridiculous. Friends from her side made little comments about modern men and fragile egos. The tuxedo stopped being a tuxedo. It became a test, and somehow, I was failing it. 3 weeks before the wedding, Claire asked me the question that told me exactly where she stood. We were in our kitchen, surrounded by seating charts, unpaid vendor invoices, and tiny cream-colored envelopes Elaine had rejected twice because the font lacked heritage. Claire was standing by the counter with her arms folded. "Would it really kill you to just wear it?" she asked. I looked up from the guest list. What, my dad's tuxedo? Would it actually kill you to wear it for one day? There it was. The same trick, dressed in softer language. Take something invasive, unreasonable, and deeply personal, then shrink it until refusing made me look cruel. "I have a tux. Claire," I said. "I've had it for months. Your mother knows that. It would make her happy. It's our wedding, and he was my father." I went quiet because she knew exactly where to press. "I'm not trying to disrespect him," I said carefully, "but I don't want to stand at my own wedding dressed like a memorial prop." Her face hardened. "You always make things difficult when my family asks for one simple gesture." One simple gesture had become the phrase they used whenever they wanted me to surrender something. My time, my apartment, my holidays, my voice, now my wedding suit. I asked the only question that mattered. "Why does your mother get to decide what I wear?" Claire did not answer. She just looked at me like I had disappointed her by refusing to disappear politely. The morning of the wedding, I arrived at the venue at 10:00 a.m. It was a converted estate house outside Lake Forest, all stone archways, polished wood floors, and windows tall enough to make ordinary people feel underdressed. The ceremony was set for 4:00 p.m. By the time I got there, the ballroom was already half dressed in white linen and blush florals. My groomsmen were in the West Suite. Marcus, my best man since college, was steaming his tie with the focus of a surgeon. My younger brother Noah was eating a granola bar over the trash can because he was terrified of dropping crumbs on his suit. Tessa Grant, the stylist Claire had hired for final grooming, was fixing my hair and telling me not to touch my face. For a few hours, things almost felt normal. Then my phone started buzzing. 7 texts from Claire in 4 minutes. "Mom is really upset. She's been crying since she got here. This is supposed to be a happy day. Evan, she brought Dad's tux. It's in the car. Would it kill you to just try it on if you loved me? You'd do this one thing." I stared at the screen until the words blurred together. Marcus looked over my shoulder, read the messages, and said 2 words. Absolutely not. Noah stopped chewing. Tessa's hands froze in my hair. I locked the phone and set it face down on the table. I'm not doing this today, I said. And for a little while, I didn't. I finished getting ready. I put on my tuxedo. The midnight blue one I had chosen. Paid for, stood through 3 fittings for, the one that made my shoulders look straight and my hands stop shaking. When I looked in the mirror, I felt something I had not felt all morning. Calm, not joy, exactly, not peace, but a thin, steady line of certainty. That calm lasted exactly 41 minutes. At 3:47 p.m., 13 minutes before the ceremony, the door to the groom's suite slammed open hard enough to rattle the framed print on the wall. Claire stepped inside. She was not carrying flowers. She was carrying her father's old tuxedo in a garment bag. Her makeup was perfect. Her eyes were not. "Change," she said. Not asked, said. Marcus stood up immediately. "Claire, you're not supposed to be in here. Get out," she snapped without looking at him. "No," I said quietly. "He stays." Her head turned toward me slowly. "My mother is crying in the front row because you refused to honor my father, Claire. The ceremony starts in 13 minutes, then move faster." She threw the garment bag onto the chair beside me. The zipper was half open. I could see the yellowed ivory jacket inside, limp and old and smelling faintly of plastic and cedar. "I'm not wearing that," I said. She stepped closer. "You are not walking down that aisle, humiliating my family. I'm not humiliating anyone. You are humiliating my mother. You are humiliating me behind her." Marcus had his phone in his hand. Noah looked like he wanted to move between us, but did not know if that would make it worse. I lowered my voice. "Claire, please don't do this right now." Her face changed, not into anger. Anger had already been there. It changed into permission. She raised her hand and slapped me. The sound cracked against the marble walls. My head snapped sideways. My boutonniere tore loose and fell somewhere near my shoe. My ear rang so loudly that for a second I could not hear Marcus shouting her name. My teeth cut into my cheek. Copper flooded my mouth. Claire did not flinch. She pointed at my face and screamed, "How could you not wear my father's tuxedo? Put it on or get out." And something inside me went cold. Not numb, clear. I looked at the woman I was supposed to marry, then at the old tuxedo crumpled beside me like a dare. I reached into my pocket, pulled out the wedding band, and dropped it on top of the garment bag. Then I walked out. But I did not go to the parking lot. I did not call a cab. I did not run. Because here is the thing Claire forgot. She was wearing a lapel microphone. The videography team, a 2-person crew from a company called Monroe House Films, had clipped a wireless lavalier mic inside the neckline of Claire's dress earlier that afternoon. Standard procedure. They wanted clean audio for the vows, the first look, and the ceremony. Claire had walked into the groom's suite with a live microphone attached to her body, and every word had been feeding straight to the AV booth beside the ballroom. Every command, every threat, every crack of skin against skin. For 6 years, Claire had been careful. She saved the cruelest version of herself for private rooms, for car rides, for phone calls after everyone else had gone to sleep. She knew how to smile in public and cut in private. But this time, she had carried the witness in with her. I walked down the hallway with my cheek burning, my tux jacket crooked, and my boutonniere lying somewhere behind me on the floor. My shoes clicked against the hardwood like a countdown. I passed the staircase where guests were beginning to gather for the ceremony. Someone said my name. I kept walking. The AV booth was tucked behind a black curtain near the ballroom entrance. Caleb Monroe, the lead videographer, was sitting behind the console with headphones around his neck and a face drained of color. He had heard everything. He looked at my cheek, then at the red mark spreading across it. "Evan," he said quietly, "I need you to play the last 3 minutes of Claire's mic feed over the main speakers." I said. He stared at me. I did not blink. Maximum volume. For 1 second, I thought he might refuse. I would not have blamed him. Wedding vendors are trained to disappear into the wallpaper, not detonate the entire event. Then Caleb swallowed, turned back to the board, and said, "Give me 30 seconds to cue it, 30 seconds. I stood there and breathed through the metallic taste in my mouth. I looked down at my tuxedo, the one I had chosen for myself, still mine, even with the collar pulled slightly crooked. Then I turned toward the ballroom doors. For the first time all day, I was not asking anyone for permission. I pushed open the double doors of the grand ballroom alone. No music, no boutonniere, no bride beside me. Just me and my midnight blue tuxedo, with a red handprint burning across the left side of my face under the chandelier light. 200 people turned. The room had been built for beauty. White linen tablecloths, crystal glasses, blush and cream flowers in tall arrangements Elaine had personally approved after rejecting 3 florists for being too suburban. A string quartet sat near the aisle with their bows lowered, confused but still polite. Claire's family filled the right side. My family sat on the left. Her co-workers were scattered near the front. Her boss, Marianne Voss, senior partner at the firm where Claire had spent 8 years building a polished public image, sat in the 3rd row wearing a navy dress and the expression of someone who did not yet understand she was about to witness a professional disaster. Elaine sat front row, rigid and silver-haired, dressed in a champagne gown that looked like armor. My father stood near the back entrance, where he had been waiting to walk in with my grandmother before the processional. His face changed the second he saw mine. The whispering began before I reached the podium. "Evan, what happened? Is that blood?" I picked up the microphone from the officiant's stand. The officiant, Reverend Paul Henley, looked at me with confusion that was already becoming alarm. I heard my own breathing through the speakers. Then I said, "There will be no wedding today." Silence, not quiet, silence, the kind that makes air feel solid. I looked out at the faces staring back at me, friends, family, co-workers, people who had bought gifts and booked hotel rooms and dressed up to watch me promise my life to a woman who had just struck me in a locked room because I would not dress as her dead father. 5 minutes ago, I said, in the groom's suite upstairs, Claire demanded that I take off my tuxedo and put on her father's old one. A few heads turned toward Elaine when I refused. She told me I was humiliating her family. My voice stayed steady. I do not know how. She hit me. The room broke open. Gasps from the left side. Someone said, "Oh my God." A chair scraped. My aunt stood halfway and froze there with both hands over her mouth. Elaine shot to her feet. "That is not what happened," she snapped. I raised one hand without looking at her. Then I turned toward the AV booth. Caleb was behind the glass, pale, ready. I nodded. The speakers crackled. First came my voice, low and controlled. "Claire, please don't do this right now." Then Claire's voice filled the ballroom, sharp and cold, in a way I knew intimately, but most of that room had never heard. "You are not walking down that aisle humiliating my family." My voice again. "I'm not humiliating anyone." Hers. "Put my father's tuxedo on, Evan, or get out." A pause, then the slap, amplified through the ballroom speakers. It sounded less like skin and more like a board snapping in half. Several people flinched. A woman near the back cried out. My father moved forward 1 step, then stopped like he was holding himself in place by force. Then Claire's scream tore through the speakers. "How could you not wear my father's tuxedo? Put it on or get out." The recording ended. For half a second, nobody moved. Then the room erupted. People stood. People shouted. One of Claire's cousins started crying. Marcus's voice came from somewhere behind me, hard and furious, telling someone to back away. Marianne Voss, Claire's boss, rose slowly from the 3rd row. Her face had gone completely still, the way powerful people look when disgust and calculation arrive at the same time. Claire appeared at the side entrance just then. Her bridal gown was perfect. Her hair was perfect. Her face was not. She looked from me to the guests, to the AV booth, and I watched the exact moment she understood what had happened. The private room had followed her downstairs. Elaine began wailing, not because I had been hit, not because her daughter had done something violent, but because the Whitmore name was burning in public. And every person she had spent years trying to impress could smell the smoke. "This is a misunderstanding," Elaine cried. "This family is grieving. He provoked her." My father's voice cut across the room. "He is bleeding." That shut her up. At the back of the ballroom, the heavy oak doors opened. 2 uniformed police officers stepped inside. Behind them stood Marcus, phone in hand, jaw tight. Later, I learned that after I left the groom's suite, he checked the hallway camera monitor near the service desk, saw the handprint already swelling on my face, and called 911 at 3:51 p.m. Claire took 1 step backward. The officers approached her. One of them, Officer Daniel Reyes, asked her to step into the hallway. She looked at me like I had betrayed her. That was the part that almost made me laugh, not because it was funny, Because even then, she believed the crime was being exposed, not what she had done. I set the microphone down gently. Then I walked down the aisle, past the flowers, past the staring guests, past the woman I did not marry. Outside, the evening air hit my face, cold and clean. I did not look back. 4 days later, Claire called me 47 times. I know the exact number because my attorney, Vivian Hart, family and civil litigation, 19 years in practice, told me to document everything and respond to nothing. Screenshots, voicemails, texts, emails, vendor messages, police reports, medical records. Do not argue with her, Vivian said. Do not explain yourself. Do not give her anything emotional to edit into a story where she is the victim. So I did not answer. Not the first call, not the 10th, not the 32nd. On the 48th call, Vivian was sitting across from me in her office with a yellow legal pad in front of her and a recorder on the table between us. "Put it on speaker," she said. I answered. Claire's voice did not sound like the woman from the ballroom recording. It was wrecked, hoarse, thin. The polished confidence was gone. And underneath it was panic. "Evan," she said. Please don't hang up." I said nothing. "They arrested me at the venue, in my wedding dress. Do you understand what that looked like? My boss was there. My partners were there. Half my client list was there. Still, somehow, it was about how it looked. My firm put me on administrative leave," she continued. "Marianne won't even take my calls. If this becomes a conviction, I could lose my license. I could lose everything." Claire was not an attorney, but she worked in legal marketing for a firm that built its reputation on crisis management and public trust. She had spent 8 years teaching other people how to survive scandal. Now she was the scandal. "You need to drop the charges," she said. I looked at Vivian. Vivian gave one small nod. "I don't control the charges, Claire," I said. "The state does." There was a silence. "You can tell them it was a misunderstanding." "It was not a misunderstanding. You can say you don't want to cooperate. There is an audio recording." Her breathing changed. "There are photographs," I continued. "There is security footage from the hallway. There are 200 witnesses who saw my face 5 minutes later. There is an ER report from Lake Forest Hospital documenting the contusion, the split inside my cheek, and the swelling along my jaw." I touched my cheek without meaning to. The bruise had faded from red to purple to yellow at the edges, but I still felt it when I shaved. "And Claire," I said, "my attorney has filed the civil suit for the first time." She sounded small. "You're suing me, yes. You can't do this to me." That sentence did something strange to me. It did not hurt. It clarified. "You hit me 13 minutes before our wedding because I would not wear your father's tuxedo," I said. "You did this to yourself." Vivian slid a note across the desk. "Venue contracts." I looked at it and almost smiled. "There is one more thing," I said. "Remember when your mother insisted on signing the venue contracts herself because my family had a practical taste, and she wanted to make sure the event reflected the Whitmore standard?" Claire did not answer. "Her name is on the venue rental, the catering, the bar service, the floral contract, the quartet, the videography team, the same videography team whose equipment recorded you assaulting me." Her breath caught. "You and Elaine are legally responsible for $82,000 of a wedding that ended with your arrest." The sound she made was not a word. It was a break. I ended the call. The aftermath unfolded with a precision that felt almost clinical. Claire's firm released a statement within the week she was terminated for conduct inconsistent with the organization's values and client obligations. By Friday, her profile had disappeared from the company website. Her LinkedIn went private the same afternoon. Marianne Voss never contacted me directly, but Vivian told me the firm had requested confirmation that the audio recording existed because they were preparing for internal documentation. They did not need much. Half their leadership team had heard the slap through professional speakers while holding champagne glasses. Claire's professional association opened an ethics review tied to workplace conduct and reputational harm. It was not the kind of board that could send her to jail, but it could make sure no serious firm wanted her near a client crisis again. The criminal case moved forward. Claire's defense attorney tried to frame it as an emotionally charged private dispute on an unusually stressful day. The assistant state's attorney, a woman named Nadine Park, who had spent a decade prosecuting domestic violence cases, reportedly played the ballroom audio during a pretrial conference and said, "Private ended when she brought a live microphone into the room." Claire pleaded guilty to misdemeanor domestic battery. She received 18 months of probation, mandatory anger management, a protective order, and a criminal record that could not be polished, rebranded, or explained away with the right font and a tasteful press release. Elaine handled the fallout exactly the way I expected. Badly. She called relatives and told them I had humiliated a grieving family. She posted a long Facebook essay about how modern men had become fragile and vindictive. She told anyone who would listen that I had weaponized Richard's memory to punish her daughter. Then the invoices came due. The venue did not care about grief. The caterer did not care about tradition. The florist did not care that Elaine had cried in the front row while her daughter was being escorted out by police. Contracts are cold documents. That is their beauty. Elaine paid. The civil suit settled 5 months later for an amount I agreed not to disclose. What I can say is that Elaine Whitmore, who had spent 6 years making me feel like a guest in my own life, wrote a check large enough to make her stop posting about family values. And Claire never called me again. I saw a therapist for the first time 3 weeks after the wedding. That never happened. His name was Dr. Malcolm Reeves, clinical psychologist, 15 years specializing in intimate partner abuse, trauma recovery, and coercive control. His office was on the 4th floor of a brick building in Evanston, with a gray couch, a brass lamp, and a window that looked out over a maple tree just starting to grow leaves. I remember sitting there with my hands folded between my knees, feeling ridiculous. That is the honest truth. I felt ridiculous. I was a grown man, 6 feet tall, 200 pounds. I had a steady job, a mortgage pre-approval, a retirement account, and a father who had raised me to believe that men handled pain quietly and did not make private humiliation into public injury. Claire had slapped me once. That was the sentence I kept repeating in my head. Once, not a pattern, not abuse, just one ugly moment on the worst day of both our lives. Dr. Reeves listened without interrupting. Then, near the end of the session, he asked, "When did the abuse start?" I almost corrected him. Instead, I said, "She only hit me once." He looked at me for a long moment. Then he said, gently, "Evan." I didn't ask when the hitting started. I asked when the abuse started. That sentence opened a door I had spent 6 years bracing shut with my shoulder. Over the next few months, we unpacked things I had trained myself to minimize. The shared calendar that became surveillance. The way Claire checked who texted me and called it transparency. The way Elaine became a loyalty test I was never allowed to pass unless I surrendered. The way every disagreement somehow ended with me apologizing for tone, timing, attitude, or insufficient empathy. The way I stopped wearing shirts Claire called too casual. The way I stopped inviting Marcus over because Claire said his energy made her uncomfortable. The way I stopped correcting Elaine when she rearranged my apartment because it was easier to be annoyed silently than punished openly. The way I stopped trusting my own irritation. That was the part that scared me most, not the slap, the training. Dr. Reeves called it coercive control. He explained that abuse does not always start with violence. Sometimes it starts with correction, with monitoring, with jokes that cut too close, with rules that are never called rules, with consequences that arrive quietly enough that you convince yourself you imagined them. The slap was the first time she was physically violent. He told me, it was not the first time she harmed you. It was the first time the harm made a sound, loud enough for other people to hear. I thought about that for weeks, because he was right. Claire had been hurting me for years with quieter tools. Disapproval, withdrawal, shame, family pressure, the slow erosion of choice. And I had mistaken endurance for love. It has been a little over a year now. I moved into a 1-bedroom apartment in Logan Square 2 months after the wedding. It is small. The kitchen has exactly 1 drawer that opens all the way. The bathroom radiator hisses like it is personally offended by winter. The bedroom window faces a brick wall, close enough that I could probably touch it with a broom handle. I love it. Not because it is impressive, because it is mine. Every plate in the cabinet, every framed print, every towel, every cheap chair I assembled badly at midnight belongs to a life where nobody else gets final approval. I went back to work. I am a project manager at an architecture firm downtown. In September, I was promoted to senior project lead. My director told me I had become clearer in meetings, less apologetic, more decisive. I almost laughed. Of course I had. Clarity is what returns when you stop living inside someone else's weather system. I still see Dr. Reeves every 2 weeks. Not because I am broken, because maintenance is how you keep a foundation from cracking again. My father calls every Sunday morning. He is not a dramatic man. He does not give speeches. Sometimes he just asks if I ate breakfast. Sometimes we talk about baseball. Sometimes there is silence on the line, steady and awkward and full of love. Marcus is still my best friend. Last month, he mailed me the boutonniere that fell off my lapel in the groom's suite. He had found it later, dried and crushed, and put it in a small frame with a note that said, "Proof you walked out." It is on my bookshelf now. People like to ask if I am glad Claire lost so much. Her job, her reputation, her money. The answer is complicated. I am not sorry consequences found her, but that is not the victory. The victory is not that Claire lost everything. The victory is that I got myself back. If this story made you rethink what control can look like, leave a comment and subscribe for more stories like this. This content was created by the Fish Tell Stories team for entertainment purposes only. Do not imitate or follow these actions in any form.